please.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 89 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, the podcast for indie authors by indie authors, where we discuss today's topics and issues that matter to the business of the self-published author. I am your moderator, Wade Finnegan, and my co-panelists are Xavier Granville.
Hello, Internets.
And should be Michelle Reed, but we were really nice and gave her a vacation day, so hopefully Michelle gets to catch us later. But our special panelist for this episode is Garrett Robinson.
Hello, Garrett. Using the word special very advisedly there. Fantastic.
Very special.
Well, we call those short bus riders, but we'll leave that off to the side right now.
Okay. I have to say, your intro is like you actually like have one, and you deliver it with, solemnity and all of, everything it should have. I literally never got to that point. I was just like, oh, and then there's an intro because there's supposed to be an intro, and then the show would begin.
Obviously, you haven't heard the one episode where I had to host.
Oh no, that sounds amazing.
I kind of end up just going into full Jeff Goldblum mode and just like, okay.
If you want to write a book, you will find a way.
You can find it, but only if the moment comes to you.
I can tell this is going to go really well tonight. I love it.
That's amazing. We might not say a lot of value, but we will entertain. Are you not entertained?
Some will not be entertained.
And, the whole reality of this is we wouldn't even be here probably if it weren't for Garrett, if he didn't really figure that out already. But this whole thing started as a parody and making fun of him and Zach when they were doing SDP. So, I owe this whole gig to you. So that's awesome. So
a copy of the show that was a copy of the show.
That's right. That's right.
But you guys are still around.
Well, I'm starting a petition to bring you guys back. You'll be back on air soon.
And this is the third incarnation, so
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, you guys have gone through like some staff changes, but Wade, you've been there basically since the beginning, right?
Yeah, I took one little hiatus. It's kind of like a rock and roll band. One person says I was fired, the other guy says I quit. Whatever. But
and as long as you have one original member of the band still in the band, then it has an air of legitimacy.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm just the hot new guitar player that's probably going to get fired at some point.
But in all seriousness, Garrett is a very accomplished author. Numerous titles to his name, more than I can remember off the top of my head. So, things like Nightblade, Realm Keepers, the Ninja Breadman, which is freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. He also edits books. He runs a really cool YouTube channel. He
doesn't do well with compliments or praise.
Formats. He does a lot of shit. He works for the guys over at Sterling and Stone, and he makes movies too. I've seen a couple of his shorts. It's been awesome, and he does all this while supporting his family, which I told him earlier in the pre-show. That's my, he's my hero for being a full-time author and paying the bills. So, and he's a heck of a nice guy. Gives back to the indie community a lot. So, Garrett, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you. It's so nice of you to say that I'm your hero. I'm gonna need to tell my wife to start telling me the same thing. Because I'm usually the guy that she's like, hey Garrett, so this month, are we good for this month? Yeah. It's all good. Jump on the computer.
Yeah.
I'm someone's hero, damn it.
That needs to be my default response now.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm somebody's hero, sweetie. She'll be like, well, la-di frickin' da.
That doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah. Turn back to the computer. I'm somebody's hero.
Yeah, I always describe myself as the guy who's like barely clinging to the bottom rung of the level that Johnny and Sean are at. Because I keep it going, but they're doing very, very well, and I'm just copying them as best as I possibly can and like hanging on with my fingernails. But if you can hang on to the rocket ship with your fingernails, you can still get to the moon.
That's right, you can still fly. So, hey, everybody that's watching us live, I'm gonna beg and plead a little bit for some iTunes reviews. We don't even have an average rating up anymore. So please, if you get a chance, give us a review on iTunes. That really helps us out. Of course, social media shares as well. Keep it viable for us. Love to see people spurting all over the place. Yeah. See what I did there.
Please do.
Alrighty then. Okay, so enough of the pleasantries. Garrett, just in case, I don't know how, but somebody might not know who the heck you are, just give us the brief bio of how you kind of got to where you're at today. What led you down this path?
Yeah, sure. So I was working as a freelance filmmaker in 2012 and 2011, and from about 2009 to 2012, I was working as a freelance filmmaker. And if anybody out there is a self-published author and they think it's hard to make it as a self-published author, you should try making it as a freelance filmmaker sometime, because it's insanely difficult to do anything. And I wanted to direct films. I didn't even particularly want to write films. I had a few stories that I wanted to do, but mostly I wanted to find really good scripts and direct them. It's very hard, because nobody wants you to direct a film until you've directed films already. So it's that catch-22. And basically a friend of mine said, you should take the story ideas that you do have and start turning them into books. And that was Zach. That was E.C. Bolger, who I've now written some books with. And he said that because he knew that when I was a teenager I wanted to be an author. And I did very, very badly. I wrote probably about 1 million words when I was in high school. Anytime I had like a free study period, that's what I was doing. And my teachers would be like, Garrett, you know, your grades kind of suck. And I would be like, well, none of that matters, because I'm going to be a writer. So then after school I discovered filmmaking, and it was fantastic. But then I came back around full circle. I started listening to the self-publishing podcast, hallowed be their name. And so I started adapting my film scripts into books, and I published several titles, and I started reading all of their titles, and then I kind of got their attention because I was really annoying. I would leave voicemails every single week, and then I would also read their books, and I would catch typos. So I would email them the typos along with a review. Like I'd do a review on Amazon, 5 stars, I love this book, and then I'd email them privately, hey, I found all of these typos, and they'd be like, shit, because they were already hiring editors. They hire better editors now. And so when I started publishing books, they brought me on and on the show, and we've been working together ever since. Sean and I have actually written a few books together, but they're all guy incognito titles, and they're all on the way to release, so I'll be mentioning them, you know, when they come out. But and I format all of their books, like you said, and I have two series. If people want to know me, I'm sort of saying nowadays that I'm a fantasy author, because I've written actually in a bunch of different genres, as you guys know. But I just say I'm a fantasy author now because the fantasy books are the only things that people really care about, and they're the series that I have ongoing and I'm actively working on. So those are the Realm Keepers series and the more recent one, Nightblade. Realm Keepers is written with my friend Z.C. Bolger, who you guys know and is probably fairly familiar to people on the show. And then the Nightblade series is all me, beginning to end, top to bottom.
And then how many books are in that series?
Nightblade has two full books out right now. I'm working on the third.
Nice.
Yeah.
And are you vlogging that novel as well on that one, on the third too? Or are you?
Yeah. And you know, Vlog a Novel is just a show where I basically live write the books. I share my screen capture, and you know, there's a little webcam and whatever, and I just do the whole process live, which is really fun and keeps me working. Like if I know people are sitting there watching me write, then I don't screw around. I don't check Facebook. I don't do anything else. So that's fun.
Kind of voyeuristic watching writing. That's kind of.
It kind of has like a 1984 feel to it, though. Yeah, I totally sympathize with what you say about making it as a filmmaker, Garrett. Like, and I totally agree with what. If you have trouble making it as a self-published author, yeah, try to hanging out with some of those guys that you know that are filmmakers and talk to them about job security.
Yeah.
And there's making it as a filmmaker is insanely hard, and I had gone through those same steps. I was directing and I was editing, and I did boom, pulse, sound record, pretty much every job that there is out there in the field for a good 3 years. And the whole time I was writing scripts for, pitching these, but also writing books at the time. So it wasn't until I found out about KDP that I was like, I don't have to be just like slaving over making sure that I am doing like every random video job that comes to me. Great.
Right.
I can be more selective now and write some, like, actually publish the books that I've been writing the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about filmmaking is there's a tiny percentage of roles in filmmaking, and they're almost all in front of the camera, where you actually accumulate an audience. And the audience for any artist or creator, an audience is the best job security there is. And you don't accumulate an audience as a screenwriter. Almost hardly anyone knows who wrote Schindler's List. Come to think of it, I don't actually even know. But a lot of people know that, like, Quentin Tarantino is a writer and a director, so they know that he writes the scripts that he directs, but they have no idea who wrote Jurassic Park or, and any of the films that they see. Some people know directors, and then, of course, everybody knows the big actors. So that's some job security if you're a very popular actor that people like, but you have nothing. So that's one thing about books, and actually kind of why my friend said I should write books is that, like, hey, you can build an audience, and then when you want to go make movies, they'll know it's you, and they'll go and watch them. So
one thing that I found jumping from, like, because I was like I said, I was writing books while doing film, and then jumped back to just writing books only. But I found when going back to prose that the outlining process and the beats process, or however you're going about writing your story, I found that came so much more fluidly to me after being a filmmaker. Yeah. Because you're always writing it from the back forward. Right. When you're screenwriting. If you don't know an ending, you don't have a movie.
Right. Exactly. And I think that if most people saw, the scripts that they actually used to shoot movies and tried to read it as a book, it's almost like it's an outline. It's just it's very bare bones. It has the dialogue, which normal outlines wouldn't have, but you can't afford to spend a lot of time. So you tell this story in the most bare bones way you possibly can. And you're always like, cut it down, because you got to get under 90 pages, and if you can get under 80 pages, that's even better and everything. So when I find that it lends an air of brevity and also a lot of what's the word? It's just very fast-paced, and you trim a lot of your own fat if you have some experience writing scripts, which maybe you like writing with a bunch of fat, but I prefer more snap and pop stories.
Yeah, and I find that too. I used to be a lot more lyrical as in my prose before I was doing screenwriting, and as much as I still do have a lot of lyricism, especially in descriptions and little things, like I have to be poetic in noir fiction, kind of a thing. That comes with the character and the tone of that era. So, but at the same time, if I'm writing a very long sentence and I'm getting lost in that, I'll stop myself and I'll just, no. Someone else fell asleep, like 2 syllables back.
You think you sound fantastic. No one else cares.
Exactly. You're just, all you're doing is, like, it sounds great, after a couple whiskeys.
Yeah. Yeah, I would actually challenge anybody who wants to improve their writing, not as something to do all the time, but just as like an exercise and a little educational experience. Is try and write the scene that you're trying to write, or maybe even the whole book if you're adventurous, as a script. If you can get it evaluated by somebody who actually knows how to write a script, and I can almost guarantee you they're going to be like, you write too much, there's too much in the description, there's not enough in the dialogue is too on the nose. That's one thing that bugs the crap out of me in books, and every screenwriter knows it. Your dialogue has to be really good, because there's going to be people standing there saying it, and if they're going to sound like jackasses. absolute idiots if they say, you know, the dialogue that most people write when they first try to write movie dialogue. So that's actually just a really good exercise. The problem is that you have to know somebody who can like evaluate a script for quality, which like not everybody knows those people.
Very true.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll start throwing in a few questions here. We got some on the site, and then of course from us, we'll just kind of bounce back and forth. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Garrett, it's kind of a little of an open-ended question, but the idea of this journey a little bit, from where you started to where you are now, what are some of your key takeaways? You know, and obviously I think it changed quite a bit when you turned full-time, so maybe because you know, our audience is growing with us, right? And more people are writing books now and getting books out there, but the next steps and those sort of things. So kind of open-ended, but hopefully you get what I'm kind of going at there.
Yeah, totally. The most important thing is to write drunk. That's for that. That's for that one commenter who said write drunk, and I often do. I'm actually a big believer in that. But no, I mean, it gets said so often that it almost sounds like a cliche at this point. But like, you have to write. You have to write a lot. You can't expect your first book to do anything at all. You're never. It's not going to do anything. And if it does, and I'm wrong, hey, great. But like, then you're in the 1% of 1% who your first book actually did anything. So, like, the biggest takeaway is keep writing. And then for me, I don't feel like people say this enough because I feel like they feel they're going to sound mean when they say it. But you have to be really, really self-aware because you might not be a good writer. And if you're not, that's okay. You can become better. I was really, really lucky in that I like I said, I wrote a lot when I was a teenager. And still, when I decided to try this again, like, I wasn't very good. And still, when I go back and look at my first book compared to my new book, like, I'm still very proud of my first book. I think it's good, and I really like the story of it. But then, like, I mean, my first book compared to Rebel Yell, I'm just like, well, I mean, Rebel Yell is like clearly the better book, and if it was a genre book written that way, like, I'm sure it would be doing a lot better, but nobody cares because it's literary fiction, and you say that to most people and they go, what's that? But
that's true.
But you have to be really self-aware. You have to evaluate if your writing is like good enough to put out yet, and if it's not, then you know, just keep working on it. And if you're not sure, then go ahead. Like, I'm never going to tell somebody not to do it, but I just think that people just like evaluate yourself and be honest with yourself is a really, really important one. Yeah, that's one that not everybody says.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, nice.
But not everyone is honest with themselves either.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That is true. And then some people too, I mean, I see the other side too, some people beat themselves up way too much. It's like, hey, this isn't bad.
Yeah.
No, it's terrible. It sucks. I can't put it out there. Yeah, you can.
Yeah. David Wright thinks every book he writes is worse than the last one. And I'm just like, dude, come on, you're friggin' amazing.
Yeah, no, I would protest to the opposite of that. I think every book that, especially whatever Dave does, he is definitely getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We still have to slip in a backhanded compliment there, so we can say he's getting better with age. There we go.
Yes.
We just had Dave on a couple of weeks ago too, and he was being all deep that night and everything. It was totally.
Really?
Oh man, you should go back. Yeah. I don't know how many times you get a chance to listen or watch, but that show with Dave was freaking awesome. So.
Oh, I gotta go listen to that. I gotta tell you guys, I got to meet Dave last year for the first Austin conference. My God, that man is awesome, and he's so not what you'd think he was like in person. He was so happy, and he was encouraging, and he was like, "You guys should get out there and do it." Da 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 da. We were like, "What the hell?" And then as soon as he gets home, he's just like, "My life sucks again."
Yep.
Very weird.
Well, and that was likewise like on the episode that we had him on here. It was good to hear him open up about some stuff, and like the blog post that he did the other day about how his he was influenced by Clive Barker so much that he kind of overcame his bigotry. You know, we got a nice little pre-taste of that before you did the blog post. You know, like it was nice to kind of see the embers smoking, and then he did that awesome blog post afterwards.
That was a great blog post. I really, really loved it. It was one of the most. It takes a big man, no, pun about his weight intended, to just talk about things like that. Like, nobody wants to say, "Hey, I used to be an ignorant jackass," but although if anybody is going to say things like that, it is David Wright. But no, but that was a really, really fantastic blog post, and he's just such a great guy. I mean, you guys. Actually, I don't know, Xavier, if you remember, but you remember the Game of Geeks podcast we did way back in the day? Oh my God, like working with him was just totally awesome. I want to revive that one of these days when he's, when we're both not so busy.
Yeah, it was good. Carl had a question, actually, Mr. Sinclair. So.
Oh God, not him.
Xavier, go ahead.
So, Garrett, you have a lot of different YouTube. Well, you have the one main channel, but you have a lot of Scrivener tutorials. You have your daily blog. You have the vlog a novel. So Carl's question is: throughout all those different venues and people that are watching you on YouTube, how do you find the crossover between that and your fiction list? Just do more people contact you about the books on YouTube and then look into the books, or do you find like it's two different audiences, or what?
Yeah, on my main YouTube channel and my vlogs, that gets actually a pretty decent crossover. It's hard to tell the exact metrics, obviously, because they don't always. I don't include, they don't always click through links in the description to go and find me. But where I get that off of is the number of reviews that I see that, like, I found this guy on YouTube and decided to pick up one of his books and I enjoyed it,
Mm-hmm.
So it is a little bit hard to tell how much crossover there is, and again, I only have like 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is not anything to write home about. But that is definitely the most successful thing. Vlog a novel, you hear, like, we all know this. Don't try and market your books to other writers. Definitely hang out with and talk to other writers and try to provide useful content for them, because that's a whole community and you all support each other and you're all helping each other. That's great. But like, vlog a novel is not so somebody will go and buy my books. If anything, it's for readers after they've read my books. It's for like. The actual reason I started Vlog a Novel is Johnny and Sean did Fiction Unboxed, and they did the whole live creation thing, except that they weren't like video streaming the whole time, and I thought that would be a cool thing to turn on and have running in the background while I was working. Now I've seen other people do that, and I've discovered that it's actually a terrible thing unless they're quiet. If they're just sitting there and writing and their fingers are clicking on the keyboards, that's actually very soothing and helps you work. But what I thought was, wouldn't I love it if Brandon Sanderson did this, or Tolkien did this, or Tolkien had done this, or Heinlein? If you could just go and watch the video archives of Tolkien writing The Lord of the Rings, oh my God, that would be incredible. Now, I'm not any of those people, but I thought, I'm doing the work and the time anyway. If I can just turn on the camera and provide like another layer of content, then that'd be great. But it's not how people discover me. If your average YouTube viewer ever found Vlog a Novel, they'd just be like, "What the fuck is this guy even? He's not even talking," and just immediately leave. And that's fine, because it's not for them.
Yeah. So have you made specific changes on your videos to attract readers, or have you just kind of doing what you like to do and then hoping that kind of helps?
Well, the most recent thing that I've done that I hope will get more of like my actual audience is Talkin Tuesdays. On every Tuesday's video, I talk about something in the world of Tolkien. I've only been doing it for a few weeks, but you know, the first week I talked about the fact that Aragorn and Arwen are actually first cousins separated by many generations, which is like a little creepy. And then on the second week, I talked about the gods of Middle Earth and like what that whole story and how that all came to be.
Yeah, the Silmarillion stuff.
Exactly, and I did have some like people pop into the comments who I have never seen before. Maybe they've been looking around my YouTube channel, but I know some of them haven't because you know they subscribed newly and they commented, and then you know basically it's just sort of new people finding me because of Tolkien. And if they're finding me because they love Tolkien and they watch those kinds of videos all the time, there's a decent chance that they are readers, are fantasy readers who'd be interested in picking up the books. Now, I'm not saying that that's something that everybody should do. I mean, for one thing, not everybody should have a YouTube channel, and some people might use a YouTube channel as an excuse not to write, and you don't want to do that. But if you are going to do something like that, you know, try and gear it towards the audience that you actually want, because there's a good chance that you're writing books for your audience because you yourself are part of that audience to some degree.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
totally makes sense. So if somebody did want to get started in you doing YouTube videos, what kind of suggestions would you give there? Just any equipment purchases you would recommend along with that, or do you need it?
To start off with, you could just use, like, you know, most laptops have like a default webcam, or you could use your iPhone. I'd recommend getting a webcam. Like the webcam that I have right now is what I started vlogging on, and it's decent quality. Eventually, I got this camera, which is, you know, nicer, but still only, you know, still not that crazy expensive. But like, learn just some like basic lighting, and learn some, you know, get an actual editing program. Like, you can use iMovie if you have to, but for $20 a month you can get Premiere Pro, which is actually very intuitive and easy to use. So, like, if you're gonna do it, don't half-ass it. It's like writing a book. Like, if you're going to write a book, then make it the best book you possibly can before release. Don't sit on it for 5 years before you release it, but make it. Don't just like write a first draft and publish it either. So I had this conversation with somebody, and Sean was just all up on me because I told somebody they should start a YouTube channel, and I was like, get a basic webcam, get Adobe Premiere Pro. Do a couple of these things, and Sean's like, Garrett, you can't tell him to do that. That's all way too complicated. Like, you know how to do that stuff because you're you, but like, they don't know how to do that. And I'm like, Sean, number one, you don't have a YouTube channel, so, you know, okay. And number two, if you tell her to start a YouTube channel without getting like her basics in, then that's the same as telling her to publish a book without ever getting it edited or looked at by anybody else, with a cover that she made by herself in MS Paint, and a description that tells the entire story of the book and doesn't make the reader want to buy it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the comparison. There's no point in making a YouTube channel if it's not going to have at least a bare minimum level of quality. Just like the only people who are going to read your book if you write and publish a shitty book are your mom and her sisters, and they're all going to tell you how great it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think people need to have a certain distinction in their head that a podcast is not the same thing as a YouTube channel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because YouTube has its own certain format. It's like television has a certain format. Enough YouTube videos have been made at this point that at this point, when you watch a YouTube video, you're like, that's a YouTube video.
Right.
So in the same way that you're marketing books, where you're just like, I'm selling a sci-fi book, well, you better make it look like a sci-fi book. You've got to look at other YouTube shows and ventures that are shot exclusively and cut exclusively for YouTube before you actually kind of have a good idea of what you're making at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like my show, my whole YouTube channel is basically just kind of a copy of the Vlogbrothers with my own twist on it. Like I love the Vlogbrothers; their channel is great. Just like my self-publishing career is kind of a copy off of Johnny, Sean, and Dave with my own twist on it. You know, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I know you're a big John Green fan, and I can't believe you haven't read Looking for Alaska yet.
I know.
You got to do that. I've recommended that to you like a long time ago. You got to do that. So, so the other day, I speaking of YouTube watching, seeing you on YouTube all the time, you talked a little bit about Nightblade being your bestseller, and it's one of your latest releases. So what do you attribute that being one of your bestsellers to? What is it, just getting better, or what sort of thing is going on there you think is driving those sales?
I mean, I think anybody who keeps writing and keeps working at it, you know, like does get better. I do think that Nightblade is like an objectively better book than, say, Midrealm, but the difference in quality between like Nightblade and Midrealm is relatively slight, as opposed to the difference in quality between Nightblade and, you know, my first book, Touch. Like that's a pretty remarkable difference. Like I said, still love my first book. I'm very proud of it, but like I want to go back and rewrite that at some point. I don't think I need to go back and rewrite Nightblade, and I wouldn't at this point. And then the other thing is that you just you learn. You know, you learn with every single release. The quality of your book improves, but the quality of what you're doing also improves. I didn't have a YouTube channel when I released Midrealm. I mean, I did, but it was just the podcast was happening on the YouTube channel. That was it. So I could talk about Nightblade on my YouTube channel when it released and make a video about that, and that drove some sales. And then I had more people liking my Facebook page and more people on my email list and just more people, you know. And then also, I mean, I do think Nightblade is something different. I think that Midrealm, a possible marketing problem that people have with Midrealm is it doesn't have enough things to be compared to. Certain people, very, very kind people who I love very much and I'm sure are incredibly attractive in real life, in the reviews on Amazon said that, like, you know, like, this reminds me of Harry Potter, but you want to be really careful tossing that out there. You know, yeah. I'm not going to go out there and say, oh, it's just like Harry Potter, because it's not. It's not. Kids aren't going to boarding school. They're not. It's different. It bears some similarities where it's like kids go to another place than our real world and learn about their magical powers, but it's just like that's the only thing that's similar about it. Whereas Nightblade, I'm like, no, it's like fantasy. Like, do you like fantasy? And they're like, well, yeah, of course I like fantasy. Like your Lord of the Rings and your Sword of Truth and your Game of Thrones and everything. It's like that. Generally, and they get, oh, okay, and if you say that to them, they go, oh, and they open the book and they're like, it is like that. It's a different story, obviously. It's its own thing, distinct from all of those. But you can say it's like them, and you don't get like pissed off people being like, it's nothing like those. You're a piece of shit, you know. So,
good point. So yeah, sometimes it's the marketing. Of course, you know, you don't necessarily want to write to market, but at the same time, if you're doing something that is a little oddball, that could be part of the deal, right? It's just people like what they like, and they tend to find those things, and they gravitate towards them. So
exactly, and you know, I think that once it finds its legs, you know, it can take quite a long time for a book series to find its legs one way or another. But I think that Midrealm could be, you know, its own kind of thing. Actually, you know, if anything, it's sort of like Rick Riordan. Riordan?
Yeah. Riordan, yeah.
Rick Riordan. I should actually start saying that. It's kind of like Rick Riordan series, except those movies were so bad.
So bad.
So bad. Have you guys seen?
But the books are good.
The books are good.
Yeah, yes. The books are good.
He hates his movies so much.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you sell the rights, right? You don't get to say anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But if you've ever seen, like, go look up his tweets and his abject hatred of the Percy Jackson films, because it's amazing. It's so hilarious to read. And I'm just like, I'm always going to self-publish.
I I have a picture of. I probably shared it with you, but it's been a few years ago. But my son holding Realm Keepers and one of the Rick Riordan books next to each other because they both arrived on the same day. So, and that would be a good comparison there too, a little bit, because there is some of that. You know, it's same genre, if you will. So
should start doing that. But oh man, I was right about. Oh, I was going to say something, which is a funny thing, because I do actually talk about that, like film rights, for example, when you go with a traditional publisher versus self-publishing it. The sad thing is that most traditional publishers probably know more about who to sell the film rights to than most self-published authors would. You know what I mean? Like, a self-published author who writes like high epic fantasy or something like that could be like approached by some director, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm a Hollywood director, and the last film I directed had a $50 million budget, and it was I don't know, Green Lantern or something like that." And you know, the people could like, what if that author just happens to be a really big Green Lantern fan, or they just get overawed by the fact that this guy directed a film with actually Green Lantern was a $300 million budget or something like that, and they'd be like, "Oh, okay, well you can totally buy the film rights, and if you make enough money from it, then sure, but your book's probably not going to be turned into a very good movie." And traditional publishers actually have like a very vested interest in making sure that it is. So that's just a funny little side thing. If you ever get an offer to sell your film rights, just shoot me an email.
I will do that. For sure. Sure. Xavier, I've tried to, but the damn comments are flying by. I know Kate Morgan had a question. I didn't want to miss it. Did you happen to catch that one?
Yeah, her question, at least the one that I remember, was, "Are you ever going to do a podcast that airs at a time that she can watch it live?"
She talking to you guys or me? Oh,
you.
Yeah, here's a question for Garrett. Is he ever going to do anything live online that airs before midnight EST before the podcast, besides this podcast? Yeah, well, my vlog and novel actually usually takes place earlier in the day, but unfortunately you're probably at work when that one happens. So I'm just trying to get you every different which way, Kate. Sorry about that.
We'll have to get you signed up for another podcast at some point, Garrett. I think the people are speaking. They want you. They want you. Another one that actually I just came up. Gosh, was it? Might have been today or yesterday. I don't know. I freaking flip through social media so much. But you had a nice big spike in email list sign up, and we've talked on this show. SPP's talked forever about how important email lists are. So one, what do you attribute that spike to, and two, what are your plans to continually grow that, and maybe give some suggestions of what other people can do as well?
Okay, so as far as how it happened, I won't even go into like exact details, but I'll just say that a couple of weeks ago, Mark Dawson was on the Self-Publishing Podcast. He talked about Facebook marketing to grow an email list, and his website is selfpublishingformula.com. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Just go to selfpublishingformula.com. Do that. Like I could explain it, but then I'd just be teaching you exactly what he taught me. Freaking amazing. I've been writing exclusively as my entire job for 2 years now, full time, and I had 300 people on my list total, and you know, they were a very dedicated list. They were they high open rates, high click rates, all that shit. But in the last 2 weeks, I acquired another 300 people on my email list. It just doubled in 2 weeks, and it's just that. So yeah, Mark Dawson is kind of a genius. So yeah, just go listen to his episode, check out his website, the whole shebang. So that's how it happened. And then in terms of like what I'm going to do with that, well, like basically what I realized was that I'm not working hard enough on the next book, because Darkfire is still like a few weeks away from release, and I'm just like, oh shit! Like now I have an audience twice the size. But basically, by the time it's done, I'm probably going to have like a few thousand people on the email list. And I'm just like, I need to get it done really quick, because otherwise, there's only so many emails you can send people each week without like having a new release before they sort of are like, are you actually writing the next book? So with the new influx of people, I sort of want to get them used to the idea of that, like, hey, hey, a new book and that whole thing. You don't want to let people sit forever on a list without actually utilizing that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, did you give a freebie away as well when they signed up?
Yeah, well, basically what I did is I set it up. I have a starter library. Actually, if anybody wants it and wants on the list as well, they can just go to GarrettBRobinson.com, and that's where the sign-up thing is. But I have a bunch of books that are free already online, like the intros to a lot of my series. But then in addition to those, which anybody can just go and download those off of Amazon, so I felt like a little cheap just being my only offering. So I added a free copy of Nightblade and a free copy of Rebel Yell, because nobody buys Rebel Yell anyway. If anybody's not familiar with Rebel Yell and why I keep harping on it, it's unfortunately my own favorite book, and so the fact that my audience of science fiction and fantasy readers don't want to read it is heartbreaking. But it's literary fiction. Yeah, it's about a band in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was about to say it's lit fiction. That's a tough sell, man.
Yeah, I got a good friend.
You put that out, and they're like, sorry, go ahead, Wade.
Oh, I just say I got a good friend that just wrote a book. It's good. It's totally literary fiction, and he wants to know about the self-publishing stuff. And I'm like, dude, try traditional publishing, or
have you tried putting a wizard in it?
Yeah, because I'm just telling you, they're just. I mean, I don't want to break his heart. I was like, it's good stuff. You're a solid writer. I mean, I read all the time, and but yeah, there's no market for it. So.
Yeah, especially in self-publishing. Although, one guy that I met over the last weekend in Austin, a guy named Brian Meeks, stalk him on Google+, because he gets a friggin' Bookbub ad like every single month, and his books classify as literary. And nobody tries to advertise to Bookbub on literary. So he's just like, I have a literary book, and they're like, thank you, because we wouldn't have any otherwise, and his books get on there. So I'm thinking about trying to put Rebel Yell up on literary, except that I would spend the money with Bookbub. I'm pretty sure I would earn the money back. People generally do when they get a Bookbub ad. And then what? Then what would they read? They would go to Midrealm? Nightblade? Like, it's not a good funnel starter. And all of his books are in that genre, but none of mine are except for the one. I'm loving chat. Chat popping up down here is amazing. This is the best thing.
Yeah, isn't it? It's nice and distracting, isn't it? When the Google adds that in now.
Oh no, what we're all saying, it's just like trying to sort it all out, and the whole creep factor. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know what to handle. I don't know what to say on this one. So. One of our co-hosts is throwing us a curveball. If you're listening to iTunes, you don't even know what's going on. But
yeah. For those that are in the dark, Michelle has snuck in.
Hello.
But oh man, she has the voice too.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Nice
I just came in because you guys were dropping the F-bomb like a lot, and that needs to stop.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, the F-bomb.
Do we not swear on this show?
No,
never, ever.
No.
Oh no!
We do.
We do.
Oh God. Okay. I thought I really screwed up. I was like, oh no! No one's ever gonna have me on their show again.
No. I came in because I keep saying my friend Garrett, but we've never actually talked, so I thought.
Fantastic. Hi,
Like,
Michelle.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay,
it does feel surreal sometimes. It's like I know these people really, really well, but you never see them. Well, I kind of do.
Yeah,
I see Garrett every day. I do. I see Garrett every day. Just about, because either I watch a video usually about every day. So Not kind of creepy, I know, but still. But anyway.
He's your stalker.
No, that's so
maybe
how
you
it
should
works.
preface that with the fact that he has a video posted every day.
It's about every day, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Once in a while he does miss, but not very often.
Yeah.
Very often.
I still have to. I was telling you guys before the show, but I still have to go make a video after we do this. I have to go make today's video because I didn't do it again, and I'm vlogging every day in April, and I set that goal, and I'm just like, oh well, crap. So
yeah. So you're gonna have to. So I had one other thing, Xavier, and then I'll let you go. I don't want to cut you off, and I don't want to dominate the thing. So, but I kind of wanted to get a little sneak peek, if you don't mind, Garrett, about how Austin went. It's because you gave some teasers, and I know a big video is coming up, so I probably don't want to give too much away. But what are some takeaways from? Now, this is your second Austin trip. I'm talking about the summit for the SPP guys.
Mm-hmm.
And can you give us some insight what you learned there?
Yeah, so the last trip was the World Builders Conference, and there were only 4 of us there. It was me, Amy, Schubert, who you guys probably know from Google+, Calvin, never remember his last name, and then Mark, whose name I also don't remember, and Monica Leonel. So I remember Amy and Monica because we work together now, and I anyway, that was specifically about the Dream Engine, because everybody who went to that conference is writing a book in the world of the Dream Engine, and it's all going to be like coordinated. We were deciding canon for the world, like we were the ones who set up all the rules and what the engine was and all of this sort of stuff, and we built it. This was not that. This was a self-publishing summit, kind of halfway in between a summit and a mastermind, and at the end of the weekend, they asked everybody what their the most valuable thing about the thing was to them, and I said that it was getting an entire year's worth of education from SPP in a weekend, because you get to hang out with them, and you get to be you don't have to go do you have any advice on an autoresponder? You could walk up to Sean and Johnny and be like, here is my autoresponder. Please fix it, or not have them fix it, but tell you what was wrong with it.
Yeah.
Autoresponder sequences was a big thing that we talked about a lot. It's very, very important that you don't just get people on a list, but then you handle them correctly once they're there. So I set up I set up my autoresponder sequence based on the advice that we got over the weekend. Finding if I guess what you just generally say is finding innovative ways to market to your audience. I have my YouTube channel, and I'm very lucky because not everybody can have a YouTube channel. Not everybody can sit in front of a camera and talk. Not everybody can, has a camera and has a microphone and all that sort of thing. And a lot of people are too introverted. They don't know video editing. Just all kinds of stuff, right? So I'm lucky with that, and I think that that's going to help me a lot as my career continues. And at the conference, there were really only 3 people there that I felt could have their own YouTube channel, and I told all of them, I was like, you need to start a YouTube channel because you're personable, you're already snapping selfies and doing a little, somebody did a Vine while they were there. I'm like, you should be doing a YouTube channel. But certain other people, Sean was like, you should be marketing through Instagram, you should be marketing through Pinterest, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. You need to find something that you can do to reach out to your audience, and that involves knowing where your audience is. Where does your audience hang out? My audience is late teenagers to late 20s. That decade is there. Those people hang out on YouTube, Kids below that age hang out on Vine a lot more than they would hang out on YouTube. So that's one thing. If you're an erotica author, you had better be on Tumblr. You had better be posting excerpts with links to your things and images that will make people want to follow your Tumblr, if you know what I mean. I'm talking about porn. You know, like,
yeah,
dude,
if
if you're an erotica author,
I thought it was for anything else.
yeah, do it, because Tumblr's totally fine with that. You can't do that on Google Plus. I mean, you can, but if anybody reports you, they can, you know, if people can report you and get their stuff removed. If somebody reports you on Tumblr, Tumblr's like, no, we're completely fine with that. We're okay. So like, erotica is really big on Tumblr. So if you write erotica, be on Tumblr. Like, you have to find where your audience is and really isolate them and find the thing that you can appeal to them with that nobody else, that few other people can appeal to them with. That was a huge takeaway for me.
So what about for you though? You have some cross-genre stuff though too. So are you just thinking about a certain segment of your audience that you're going to try to target with your marketing, and then maybe in from the side door, or are you going to do different marketing campaigns depending on which books you're writing at which time?
Well, I'm not gonna. Basically, right now in my career plan, I'm not going to write anything other than Realm Keepers and Nightblade until I can afford to. You know how Johnny and Sean always talk about that? They're like, that was huge on our budget, like Axis of Aaron, for example, which, by the way, is one of the best indie books that's ever been published, ever, period. It's fantastic. But they're like, that was expensive. And they don't mean that it cost them money, it cost them time. And when they put it out, because, you know, same story, Axis of Aaron, literary fiction. Their audience was like, cool, well done, guys. When am I getting the Beam Season 2? Like, they didn't care. You know, they didn't go and buy the book. Some of them did. I did. I thought it was amazing. But they can't afford to do books like Axis of Aaron all the time. So they probably won't do another one until, you know, next year. And that's the same for me. I can't afford to do any of my other genre books until I can afford to. And what will get me to the point where I can afford to is writing more Nightblade and writing more Realm Keepers, because I know about how long it takes me to produce those books, and when I put it out, I know that the audience is there, the response will be there, etc. Especially since now, with all of the people that I'm pulling onto my email list, they are Brandon Sanderson fans and Terry Goodkind fans. So I'm not going to be writing Hit Girls 2, you know, until I can afford to. I'm just not.
Cool. I like that. That's solid. Some questions from the site, Xavier or Michelle now, because, you know, Michelle, you're not just going to sit there and look pretty. You got to, like, do something. So, I know Kate had another one and stuff. It's going. It's a little wonky for me. So you guys are going to pick that up.
Yeah, I've been watching through them. There have been a huge amount of questions directly for Garrett, but yeah, Kate, the one Kate just posted, I think would work best. Can Garrett go into his writing process a bit, please?
Yeah, sure. And if you know, if anybody wants to watch it for 25 hours, Log a Novel is the YouTube channel. But basically, my writing process is really similar to what you'll find in Write, Publish, Repeat, with the exception that I use I guess a slightly modified version of the snowflake method. If you don't know what the snowflake method is, just, you know, Google it. It's out there. You can find the basics for free, and then I think the guy who invented it wrote a book. Get the book, read it if you want to check it out. It's always good to learn how other authors work. But essentially, my books always start with, you know, the idea, which is not a story, it's an idea. You know, what if there were a world where blah, but, you know, that's not the story. So I take that and I find the story and the idea and I boil it down to, like, the smallest possible sentence that it can possibly be, just it itself, the story from beginning to end within a single group, very small group of words. And then I unfold it into, like, its 3 acts, and then I turn each 3 acts into a paragraph, and then I unfold those into multiple paragraphs. And you just keep unfolding it and unfolding it and unfolding it until you have your story. And what I'm doing now with Darkfire, which is why Darkfire is taking me a little bit longer than Nightblade and Mystic did, is that I feel like I could have done better character work on those 2 books. I really like my characters, and reviewers say they like my characters too, but there's a difference between characters when I'm reading, for example, there's a difference between characters that I really love and characters that are awesome. You know what I mean? There's characters where it's just like, that person's cool. And then there's characters where it's like, I wish I knew you in real life, and the saddest thing about finishing this book is that I don't get to hang out with you anymore. I don't know about you guys, but I want characters like that. So, in the third book, I'm essentially doing a repeat of the snowflake method, but for my characters. Like, I'm taking each one of them and their plot line and figuring out how each chapter and each scene and then each, sentence relates to them and what they're going through and what they're feeling, and making sure that they all do have their arc. Like, I feel like we all know that your other main characters, other than your main character, they should have their own storylines and they should have their own ups and downs. But I feel like sometimes that's not the focus that people have. So that's what I'm trying. And my outline is like 10,000 words long and growing longer, and the book is going to be 90,000 words long. So it's one of the longest outlines I've ever written. But I hope it's going to be like a lot better because of that.
Do you keep your outline do you do it for one thing? Actually, two questions. Do you do your outline in Scrivener, or do you do it separately? And then do you keep it like right there, or do you kind of just glance at it periodically, like, okay, this is where I want to go and start, and then check in?
It's in Scrivener, and it's always right below what I'm writing when I'm writing. But usually I've stewed in my outline long enough that I don't need to look at it all the time, but it's helpful to have it right there. Like, I wouldn't want it to be on like my second monitor over here. It's just like right down there. So I get into the scene and I'm flowing and I'm flowing and I'm flowing and I'm flowing, and then I'm like, okay, I feel like something else should be happening, and then I can just look right there and then keep going with it.
Nice.
So I've literally got it arranged. This is going to be good for the YouTube viewers. I've literally got it arranged so that I'm writing. If I'm writing right here, my outline is right here, just with a couple empty lines separating the two of them. And now I'm crushing your head. The iTunes people are like, what the fuck?
What was that, Michelle?
I do that too, where I just scoot it down.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Which
works great.
I always learn something on this show. I'm telling you, being a host it's like Johnny always said, it's like it's just sitting in on your own stuff, but it's like, I can't do that. Yeah, learn something. It's good stuff. Xavier, any questions on your end, sir?
Yeah, sure. So Garrett, you tend to attack pretty much most social medias that I'm aware of, anyways. In this kind of constantly changing world of different venues that you can advertise yourself and your products, like what avenues have you wanted to pursue that you haven't gotten to, or what are you hoping is going to open up down the line?
Well, what's really interesting about social media is that, like, different ones are good for different things. Like, for example, I don't actually organically post on what do you call it? I don't organically post on Twitter very much. Most of my Twitter posts are automatic posts from my Tumblr, where I post a lot. And I try to have a Tumblr blog that people will, enjoy looking through. I reblog things from a lot of diverse sources. So there's, sometimes it gets a little weird, unfortunately, because there's a whole comment on the role of, feminism in fantasy and how it may have contributed to a toxically masculine culture in the publishing industry, and then there's a fart joke. It's like, because I'm like, the stuff I read is all over the place, and then I'm like, oh, I want that on my blog, and it just sort of gets shared, and it's just like, sometimes I don't always think about the continuity of what I'm posting there, but then it all gets like organically posted to Twitter, right? But nobody reaches out to me on Tumblr. Nobody sends me messages or asks. They follow me. They like what I'm doing, and they see it when I post about a new video or a new book. Twitter is where people talk to me, and I don't think people click on my links in Twitter to go see my books. We all know that. You go on Twitter and you're like, I have a new book, and people are like, okay, like they just don't care. But to me, Twitter is a place where people communicate to the people that they love. The fans and artists and creators can all sort of like mingle more so than on Tumblr. Meanwhile, Facebook, great for advertising. That's where I'm getting all of my email list signups and that huge spike on that graph. Facebook advertising. I don't post on Facebook, and I don't go on Facebook as a user. I have a Facebook page, which again just catches auto posts from my website, but I don't organically post there, and I never ever go on Facebook as a user anymore. I just don't, because there's people. The thing with Facebook is because it's like all personal connections, you have to be connected to certain people that you don't want to be connected to. Like your wife's best friend is like, why isn't your husband, friended me on Facebook? And in my head, it's like, well, because you post stupid things all the time, and I don't want to be your friend. But then your wife's like, sweetie, can you please friend my friend? She keeps asking me about it, and it's like, why is that even a thing? Why should she be asking you? If you're not friends, then you don't want to be friends, and that's the deal. And you don't. So I don't ever go there. And then there's the whole thing with the algorithms. You guys probably already know about that. If you post on a Facebook page, only 15% of the people who have liked your page will see it. So that's why would I? Yeah, why would I put any attention on that whatsoever? Advertising. Fantastic. Probably the best platform for authors to advertise on. Anything else? No, not so much.
Robert Charles, fairly new viewer, so Robert, thank you for contributing. I wanted to know, have you got a BookBub ad? Has that happened for you? And what? Okay, shaking head, no. iTunes.
Yeah, have never had a BookBub ad. I kind of hate BookBub. I love them and I hate them. I would probably, like, if I ever actually get a BookBub ad, then I'll love them and I'll hate them. Right now I just kind of hate them. They have no transparency, which is the worst thing for me. They have no, they don't tell you why they don't accept your book. And the thing is that I would probably be getting books accepted if I, submit, and when I get the rejection, just like immediately submit again and have that schedule. And actually, that's one of my wife's main jobs now, is I have 4 books that I really want to get a BookBub ad for, which is the 2 books in Realm Keepers and the 2 books in the Nightblade series. So, you have, as soon as you submit a book and it gets rejected, you're supposed to wait 30 days before you submit that one again. So
they do tell you why they rejected you sometimes. They've told me both times.
But it's just so general, It's like, maybe they've told you specifically, but really? Because they've never told me. They're always like, here's our list of guidelines and, like, tips to get picked up. And I'm just like,
no,
okay.
they said mine was okay, but it was too short. And I was like, it's not my fault. It's like a blip in the thing that I have to fix, but...
Oh, like the book itself is too short?
Yeah, the ebook doesn't match the original thing that I uploaded, even though it's been reformatted, it's been redone.
Oh, that blows. Yeah, no, when I got the same thing too, because the first BookBub ad I ever tried to get was on an episode, an ebook, the serialized episode, and they were like, we don't, sorry, that's too short, like, we want a full-length novel. But now that I'm submitting novels, now they're like, I'm sorry, we didn't accept your book. Here's our, tips to get accepted. And I'm just like, what the hell? So,
Can you
but
please
now,
tell me exactly what you need?
Right. So now Megan will submit Mid-Realm. They reject it. That's on a 30-day timer. Then she submits Nightblade. That gets rejected. It goes on a 30-day timer. Then she submits Wormspire. Reject, 30-day timer. And then she submits Mystic. Reject, 30-day timer. So that is, according to the SPP guys, that's what they say works. That's how they finally started getting ads, and now they can get ads. And
right.
Like I said, Brian Meeks, who's in a very underpopulated genre, gets ads all the frickin' time. And Brian Meeks is doing fine. You know what I mean? Like, he's doing great. So his ads must be doing very well for him. And that's the thing about Bookbub, is they're how they do well. They wouldn't be so in demand if they didn't do well. And the only thing about them is, like, I don't know how much they have a reputation for quality, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't have so many subscribers and they wouldn't be doing so well as a company.
I don't know. Some of their books that they have in there have like 2 reviews.
Yeah.
And I don't understand.
And some of them are Morgan Rice's books, and I don't want to call anybody out, but man, I've read Morgan Rice's books, and I don't. They have really blatant I'll just say without like the quality of the writing or the story or anything like that, without even getting into that, they have really blatant errors, kind of all over the place. And so it's just one of those things where it's like she's got to be doing well, and she's got to be doing well for Bookbub because they keep putting her in fantasy, but it's like when you open it up and the first sentence of the book has, you know, a grammatical error, you're just like, but that's the thing. Bookbub isn't really, as much as they might say that and as much as that might be their reputation and everything like that, Bookbub isn't in the business of promoting good books. They're in the business of making money, and they have algorithms and they calculate like what book is going to make them the best money. And I mean, I don't know. Like, can you say that there's anything wrong with that? Obviously, that's their business model. And I don't run their business.
It would be nice to be able to figure out their business model so we could crack it.
Right, a little more transparency. But you know, certain companies are pretty transparent. But it does seem like the biggest companies, Amazon, Google, YouTube, et cetera, they don't have transparency, and it's working for them. So it's sort of one of those things where it's like, what are you gonna do?
You can't argue.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you didn't like state any of the big institutions like governments and churches and everything like that.
I try to avoid religion and politics when I get into general group discussions. I talk about those with private friends. But everybody loves to rag on corporations. We're all like, fuck those fat cats sitting in their ivory towers on their piles of gold coins.
You think you're so smart, Mr. Taco Bell.
Well, we have burned an hour already.
Have we really? Jesus.
Yeah. So we're gonna have you back on again sometime, Garrett, because this is too good. So, but was there any final ones that we missed off the side, or Xavier, Michelle? Because like I said, they were making fun of me in the chat, but I've kind of dominated the conversation tonight. So you know.
We weren't making fun.
Oh no, never.
No, the only thing that I had to ask was just like on a typical day, how do you divide your hours between all the different things you have on the go?
Well, my schedule's in a state of flux as I try to figure out what works best. What I realized recently, actually over the Austin weekend, was that I didn't actually write every single day. I wrote most days, but sometimes I'd go for a stretch of several days without writing, and that's ridiculous. Like, this is my job, right? So I wake up in the morning now, and the first thing that I do is I write, and I write for 3 or 4 hours, and then I'm allowed to do something else. So I'll write for 3 or 4 hours, and then like I'm supposed to make a YouTube video. I haven't done that the last 2 days during the time slot I'm supposed to do it. And then after I do that, handle my email, like I'm not allowed to look at my phone or my iPad until I've gotten my writing hours in. Then I sit down, handle my email, messages, all that sort of stuff, and do my YouTube video. And then I sit down and I start doing Blog a Novel. And the writing before that is the writing that I'm doing with Sean. So that's basically it. It's write on the stuff that I need to prioritize most. Then do like administrative type stuff and my YouTube video, and then after that, Blog a Novel and get Darkfire done. What I might start doing now that I've got so many more people on my email list and I really want to sell them a book is switch it so that I do Vlog a Novel first thing in the morning, and then I would do a few episodes. I would do like 3 or 4 episodes of Vlog a Novel, and then my administrative stuff, and then do the writing with Sean. But it's you really gotta tweak until you find what actually works for you. So yeah.
Good. Nice.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. Well, Garrett, thank you. Thank you very much for coming on tonight. It was really insightful, and appreciate you taking your time. So.
Thank you, man. I can't believe I've never been on the freaking show before.
I know, that's just crazy, isn't it?
Crazy.
You did have a blog. You did blog for us. Yeah. I put that link to that on the site, so you guys can check that out too. We talked a little bit about outlining and such, and a little bit about his process. So check that out if you guys get a chance. And also, please, not to the point of begging, but almost, leave us a review on iTunes. We need some really, really bad, and share us around the old internets, as Xavier would say. It really helps us to keep this show viable. So, but we do appreciate all the live listeners, and your questions and comments is awesome. Yeah, next week, I think, Michelle, there's some guy we're going to have on the show next week. Do you know who the guy is? I kind of maybe Xavier. Do you know who that guy is that we're going to have on the show?
I actually quickly forgot, and then I felt like a
He's
finger
so easily forgettable.
Yeah, I felt like a finger tapping on my shoulder, and I looked, and it was Australia. Carl Sinclair, former leader of this podcast, will be making a return for next week only. He will be gracing us with his presence to talk about his
broadcasting from his underground government bunker.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Everyone has to troll him because he trolled us.
Yeah, he trolls it every week, and that's what makes the show.
But you also have to ask him one serious question.
Yes, always only one.
Only one. That's right, only one. So.
Okay,
yes.
I just left a review on iTunes, which, again, I can't believe I didn't already do that before. So all you lazy motherfuckers out there, go leave your reviews on iTunes.
Yay, Garrett, thank you.
He left a review while he was on the show. You guys are listening. Come on,
Yeah, you have
multitask.
no excuse whatsoever. So, all right, well, that's another episode. Thank you, everybody, for watching and participating, and we will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Xavier, what do you got to say for yourself?
Good night, internets.